Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Joining me now is Matt Taglia, Senior Director of Emerson College Polling. Matt, thank you so much for joining me once again.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
A new Emerson College poll taken days after former President Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt shows Trump beating Biden in 7 critical battleground states. Matt, what are some of your takeaways here? What do we need to know?
Well, it's not great news for the Biden campaign, I'd say. Biden is down in every state. We saw that before, but it looks like the combination of the shooting, the bad debate performance is really starting to take its toll on his numbers in some of these swing states and nationally. Nationally, he's ticked down by about a point since our last poll, so he's at -4 to Trump, and that expands to a 6-point deficit when you look at the expanded ballot, including Kennedy, Cornel West, and some of these other third-party candidates. What we do see is that Trump isn't necessarily gaining a lot from the swing state polls or nationally. We see folks moving more towards undecided, in some cases to some of these third-party candidates. And only in Michigan has Trump actually lost any ground. He's gained very slightly elsewhere. Yeah, not good news for the Biden campaign. It's a tough spot to be in right now.
I want to talk a little bit about these undecideds. If more people are moving that direction, what does that indicate to you?
I think there's just a whole new level of uncertainty here. The shooting over the weekend, the attempted assassination of former President Trump. Uh, I think a lot of people saw that combined with the media coverage that President Biden has received over the past few weeks. And I think these undecided voters are only growing a little bit. That's not to say that they're all going to be up perhaps by either candidate. I think that some of them do lean one way or the other. But I think right now it's hurting Biden more. It's more some of these soft Biden supporters who are drifting away, so to speak.
I want to talk about President Biden's pathway to victory here because this poll says that Trump is winning all of these swing states. And I mean, these are critical to win any election, especially this one. This election has been said to come down to these battleground states. As of now, does Biden have a pathway to victory?
Yeah, I don't think that you can write off a pathway to victory for Biden. It's very tough in some of these states, like, say, North Carolina, which some don't necessarily consider a swing state. But it's looking like it's probably off the table, at least for now. You look at some states, though, like Virginia, which wasn't a part of this round of swing state polling, but we did poll recently where we found that President Trump is up by 2 in the initial ballot. And that's really something that President Biden probably does not want to see, being that he won the state by around 10 points in 2020. So the path to victory is really shoring up some of these states where he's not doing as poorly, like Pennsylvania. That's a must win for the Biden campaign. And then he has a choice to make. He can either try to win through some of the Rust Belt states, Michigan, Wisconsin, or he can try to win Georgia and ideally Arizona, which is looking a little bit further away as well. So there is a path to victory, but it's a tough one.
I want to talk about the events that have taken place within the last couple of weeks because they have been monumental for this election. The first being that historic debate between Trump and Biden, where Biden had what many have called a disastrous debate performance, and that has caused this effect of many lawmakers calling on him to step aside or at least gently but strongly hinting at it. Then you have last week President Trump survive an assassination attempt. Politically speaking, what event has impacted voters more according to this poll?
I don't know that we can look at the poll and say that one has influenced them more than the other. I think it's a combination of both events plus the media coverage surrounding each. I think it is fair to say we took this poll after the attempted assassination. So I do think that that had some effect. It boosted Trump a little bit. We also have the RNC going on. Now, most of the coverage hadn't actually started when we took this poll, but it's still out there. It's still in the minds of some folks. I think just the continued media coverage of any and all of these events are really having an impact on that top line number. It's possible that it bounces back as a result of the DNC, as a result of whatever happens over the next week in terms of Biden's candidacy. But as of right now, yeah, I think both of these things have just not been favorable to the Biden campaign, while Trump has maintained fairly good coverage in the media.
There's been a big question, as we suggested, on if President Biden should withdraw, should step aside from his re-election bid. And there have been mounting calls from members of Congress for him to step aside. Those calls were quieted over the weekend after Donald Trump survived that shooting, but they have really ramped up over the past few days. The Biden campaign has said he's staying in. Do voters feel, especially where we are right now, we are after primary season, a few weeks before the DNC, do voters feel that he should stay in?
Well, it's really interesting because we see both nationally and at the swing state level that voters overall, if we're just looking at registered voters, they're split. Roughly half of each say that he should stay in the race. The other half say he should leave the race. Or is not fit to be president. That's sort of how we phrased it for another term. But we see that Democrats actually prefer to keep him in, or at least say that he is fit to serve another term in office. So, there is going to be some partisanship. This contrasts with some other polling results that we've seen from other firms who ask it in a slightly different way. But overall, both in this polling and in some of our other recent polling, it doesn't look like Democrats are looking to change up the top of the ticket necessarily. That's especially true when you look at certain demographics like older voters, Black voters in particular, have a real affinity for President Biden. So there is absolutely that support still there for him within the party and among some of his major constituencies.
This poll also shows a new shift, and that is new voters are going towards Trump over Biden. And we haven't seen this in decades, where new voters are trending Republican instead of Democrat. What does this indicate to you?
That's right. It's a weird trend. We have seen it in polling, not only our polling, but other firms' polling throughout the cycle. And it's hard to say exactly what this will mean. So we see Trump winning these new voters in all but Pennsylvania and North Carolina in this most recent poll. And that's between 30 and 52% of these folks who didn't vote in the 2020 elections. I think that we need to take these with a grain of salt, frankly. These new voters are going to be among the least informed walking into the ballot box, especially right now when they haven't necessarily started tuning in. Maybe they've only seen some coverage on social media, which is probably influencing their vote. They're also among the least likely to turn out in this election. So we don't necessarily know what the breakdown will look like in turnout when we start subdividing these new voters into other groups. So really, I would hazard that that's a really tough metric to look at. I just take that again with a grain of salt for now. I think once we get a little bit closer, we start getting into late August and close to Labor Day, then we're going to start to see whether this trend holds. And at that point, the Biden campaign needs to be very concerned, or whatever the eventual Democratic nominee campaign is up at that point.
Matt, I want you to read the tea leaves for us here a bit. When you're looking at all of these numbers, what do you think this indicates about the election? What sticks out to you the most? And what are you keeping tabs on come August, come the DNC, and come as we get even closer to this election?
From these results, it's tough to read many tea leaves, frankly. We see so much undecided. We see Trump gaining a little bit. But frankly, I expected this to be a little bit more decided. I expected Trump to be up maybe a little bit more in the national top line. But we discussed this before. That national number, that doesn't necessarily translate to equal support in these swing states. And so we are seeing the evidence of that. We're going to keep an eye really on some of these most important swing states like Pennsylvania. Again, that's a must win for Biden in particular. And a 5-point deficit, which is held since late June, that's tough to overcome. And that I think that's going to be make or break.
Matt Taglia, I appreciate you coming on here per usual. I appreciate the conversation, you breaking down the numbers. Thank you so much.
Thank you.